Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. He wanted to drive me to a place that doesn't exist. By Creaky Tits. This week has been hectic. My 3 kids have the flu. Oldest was first, then my youngest 2 caught it. After a visit to the clinic, I was heading to the CVS down the street from our house for their prescriptions. I decided last minute to drop my kids off at home with their dad so they could get some rest, and I could go inside the store to pick up some Pedialyte. I consider our neighborhood to be safe. I've taken walks after dark and never felt afraid. Most of our neighbors are older folks who have lived there over a decade. When I pulled up to CVS, I parked on the side parallel to our street. It's dark around that side, but the entrance is right around the corner and well lit. There was a man staying outside. He was walking in front of my car and I could hear him talking, but my music was kinda loud. I figured he was on his phone or something. No red flags yet. My husband called me as the man walked back towards the corner adjacent to the entrance. I got out of my car, still on the phone, telling my husband, yeah, kiddos have the flu, I'm picking up medicine at the CVS, etc. In a very pleasant voice, the man says to me, "Hey, I got a question for you. Do you know where Main Street is?" I, assuming he was asking for directions or the location or something, tell him I do. I'm still holding my phone to my ear. It's in a bright pink case, so I'm sure he could see it. Now this man is staying directly in front of me. There's a pillar and a trash can behind him. Around the corner is a propane cage and a red box against the store's wall. Getting past him will put me in arm's reach. Next, he asks for a ride there, to a homeless shelter. It's very cold outside and he doesn't want to freeze. I empathize with him, but I said I couldn't. I offered to buy him gloves or a blanket and asked if an employee in the store could assist in finding him a ride. Sweet baby Jesus, this guy's face immediately changed to pure rage. Then right back to pleasant. Well, you know what happens to homeless people stuck outside. You're going to help me. It's right down the street. I'm standing there unsure what to do. My husband's on the phone asking what's going on. I gently tell the man that I don't feel comfortable doing that and that I have the flu. I don't. And my husband's on the phone with me. I don't care about the flu. Now he's getting more angry and not moving away from my route into the store. I didn't want to turn my back on him to go back to my car, which was several feet away in the dark. While this guy is glaring at me, I decide to quickly walk past him. I had my mask from the clinic in my jacket pocket, so I pulled that out and held it in front of me while I moved towards the trash can. He looked disgusted, but kept telling me I need to give him a ride. It's right down the street, he insisted. But I know where that street is, and it's not as close as he says. He tried to guilt me, and his words felt threatening, but he didn't actually threaten me verbally. Once I was around the corner, I rushed into the store straight to the pharmacy. My husband said he is calling the police. He heard the way the man was talking to me and said to stay in the store. My knees were shaking. I'm not usually the type to be so afraid when confronted. When I got to the pharmacy, I interrupted the pharmacist and a customer, apologizing, then told them what happened. The pharmacist sent the store manager out. A tall man with a long beard looked like he doesn't take crap from people. The police had already arrived. The man was told to leave, which he did momentarily. He came back inside the store yelling obscenities and something about me. Now, the store manager has told him to get the fuck out. He's trespassing on the property. The cop came back to talk to me and told me she's arrested him many times. He's loud and likes to yell at people, but he isn't violent. The pharmacist had me hide behind the screen where they give the vaccines and left the half door to the pharmacy cracked open in case I need to get out of there. The cop also told me this guy's first and last name. So did the store manager. Is that even normal? The prescriptions are finally filled and I leave the store. The police park next to my car to keep an eye on me. Oh, and the man refused a ride from the cops to the shelter. Later, I looked him up. His name is unique, so he's easy to find online. Surprise, surprise, he has a long record spanning 3 states and several counties. Tons of public intoxication charges, DWIs, urinate in public, assault and battery, and indecent exposure. I also looked up the homeless shelter. Yeah, as I thought, there isn't one where he wanted me to take him, but that area is super sketchy. Earlier today, I went to the corner store across from CVS and told my friend, the overnight staff employee, what happened. She kicks him out of the store and calls the police every time she sees him before he yells at and threatens customers, but he always takes off before the police arrive. I know I could have handled that better. I was blindsided by his instant shift from pleasant to filled with rage. Big thank you to the pharmacy team who kept me safe and the store manager for confronting this creep. They didn't have to do all of that. I'm thankful for my husband recognizing I was unsafe in the situation over the phone. This man is still out there somewhere in my area. I remember the day that the immortality elixir was invented. They practically gave it away. Now that I sit here on the street, my body is filled with agony at the age of 187. I pray one day I'll have enough money to buy my death. I was almost kidnapped as a child by No Knowledge 3945. Recently, there was an Amber Alert and my daughter was asking what that beeping sound was all about. For those who don't know, an Amber Alert goes out when a child is reported missing. If you've received notifications, you know what I'm talking about. The alert will sometimes give information like the victim's appearance as well as the perpetrator, the location of the abduction, make and model of a vehicle. My phone started beeping one evening while helping my daughter clean her room, an Amber Alert. She asked me about it, I gave her a small rundown, and that was that. However, it triggered a childhood memory I had where I believe with all my heart that I was almost kidnapped when I was a kid. To be clear, this isn't a memory that was laying dormant in my subconscious, and this random Amber Alert and talking with my kid caused it to resurface in my mind. This incident is something I've pondered and thought about off and on for years now. I'm 41-year-old male, by the way. It's just been a while since I considered the factors and details of the experience, and this recent Amber Alert and talking with my daughter really caused me to pause and reflect on the incident itself once again, and here I am. As a parent, you worry about these things and do all you can to protect your children, especially when you personally experience something truly scary like this. The occasion happened when I was just a young kid. My guess is around 7 to 8 years old. I can't be sure, but I think that's a safe estimate, based on the fact that much of those early childhood memories aren't there anymore. I do remember my kindergarten experience, which I would have been 5 to 6, and also later grades. So this incident must have happened sometime after or around the age of 7 to 8. My parents took me to a neighboring city to do some shopping. We lived in a small rural town with not much on offer, so from time to time, we would go to this neighboring city about 45 minutes from where we were located. It just had more to offer. They would take me up there for school clothes shopping, out to eat because the restaurants were better, and because my mom was a crafter. She loved to make crafts. It was her thing. There were different craft stores and fabric stores she liked going to up there. This specific trip, we went to a fabric store up there, Joann's Fabrics to be exact. This was a pretty big store. As a little kid, I guess most every place has seemed big, but no kidding, this was a sizable store. My dad sat in the car while I went in with my mom. He did that a lot, sit in the car. When there was a store, he just didn't want to go in, so I guess I can't blame him there. I can't recall exactly what all my mom was looking for or trying to get in the store that day, but I do remember what section we were in. An area with a bunch of racks with various fabrics hanging. Imagine a clothing store with a circular rack with clothes hanging around them, and that's pretty much what it was like at the fabric store. Racks of hanging fabrics. I remember this area being slightly towards the beginning or entrance of the store. As my mom was looking through these racks, I began to wander, though not far, just enough to kind of look around myself. I was probably bored and started wandering around, is my guess. But I could still see my mom just up and over a few racks away, so it wasn't like I was on the other side of the store or anything. A random man approached me, and honestly, I can't remember at what direction he even came from. It's just like I was there by myself 1 minute, and the next I looked up and saw this guy. It was like he came in fast and out of nowhere. I quickly looked over to where my mom was. She had moved a few racks up and away, but I could still see her. There was a fair bit of distance between my mom and me at this point. So here I am, standing behind some rack of fabric with this older guy opposite me and the other side of this rack. He then speaks. "Hey little boy, how you doing there?" I remained silent because this took me completely off guard. He said, "Where your folks at? Are you alone in here?" I stood still and quiet. "Come here, I got something to show you." At this point, he started advancing towards me, coming around the rack to where I was. I quickly started the other way, but he stopped and started coming around the other way as if to meet me in the middle. I was scared at this moment and became instantly aware that this man seemed dangerous and like he was trying to get a hold of me. "Come here," he barked. I jerked fast to the left, but he did the same. He had this wild look in his eyes. Whichever direction I went, he followed, but remember, there's a rack between us. God, I'm so thankful for that rack. After some back and forth movements from me and this man, I finally locked in on my mom and yelled, "Mom, help!" They would have thought I screamed bloody murder. It was so loud, but I just got my mom's attention. "What's wrong?" she asked. This startled the man. He looked over his shoulder in the direction of my gaze and confirmed, yep, that must be his mother. His demeanor completely changes, and it's as if everything is just fun and games and he was just messing around. And he said as much to my mom. "I was just messing around with him. No harm, ma'am." My mom came to where I was, and we reconnected. This guy just tips his hat at my mom and makes his way out of the store. I explained to my mom what just happened, that this guy was trying to get me. I was so upset and shook up. She told me I did the right thing by yelling and gained her attention. It was terrifying for sure, and I'm thankful something crazy didn't happen. Could I have been imagining things like maybe this guy was really just messing around? I very much think there was nefarious intentions. Why would a random older guy be perusing a fabric store? If he was there for some things like crafting or fabric, why promptly leave when confronted? I truly believe he was up to no good. Anyways, that's my story. I appreciate anyone for taking the time to listen. When I gained possession of my own voodoo doll, I always kept it locked in my house safe just in case. Even though I was 500 miles away at the time, the sudden agony of my skin inexplicably blackening and bubbling meant I was the first to know about the blaze tearing through my house. Am I being paranoid, or was I almost the victim of an elaborate mugging or kidnapping? By illiterateaardvark. I do some volunteering at a hospital 3 times a week that involves me reporting to the hospital at 5 a.m. I enjoy the volunteering. I've been doing it for almost 2 years, and I've never had any issues until last week. Last week, I was a bit early on my volunteer days, and I had about 30 minutes before I had to report in. I normally would have just waited in my car, but I had been pretty stressed about things in my personal life, so I thought I'd go for a little walk to burn a little steam and clear my head. After all, this is a pretty nice area, upscale West Los Angeles, so what could go wrong? It was 4:30 a.m., so naturally the streets are all quiet, but it seems pretty peaceful. But then up ahead, I see somebody walking in my direction. Kinda odd, I guess, but I didn't think too much of it. Him being out here at this hour isn't inherently suspicious, after all. Does being out here at this hour automatically make me suspicious too? So I kept walking. We made quick eye contact when we crossed paths, and suddenly I got a very bad feeling about this man. I can't explain it other than instant. Sometimes you just have a bad gut feeling about someone, you know? That's what I felt when I passed this man, and I immediately went on high alert and made sure he wasn't going to approach me from behind or something. Very soon after walking by this man, I'm talking like 15 to 20 seconds, I passed by one of the many parked cars on the streets. This is Los Angeles, so there's lots of parked cars on the side of main streets. Except this parked car is different. There is a man sitting at the wheel, and this man waves at me and beckons me over. Again, pretty darn creepy, but not inherently worth freaking out over. But as I keep walking, I realize that while the car was parked, it wasn't off. It was just simply in park. Because the car started driving in the same direction I was walking, and its driver at a pace essentially matching my walking speed. At this point, I had enough, and my brain was saying nope, so I immediately turned around and started speed walking back in the direction that I came from. Then I saw something that, in the moment, scared the fuck out of me. That first man that I had encountered walking the other direction, which was now probably like 40 seconds ago, was now standing pretty close to me. Like, way, way closer than someone who had been walking in the other direction should be. And then he makes eye contact with me. And then he starts walking in my direction. I am incredibly suspicious and more than a bit nervous at this point. So because it's pretty dark out, I decide to play a hunch. My car keys fold out in a manner very similar to a switchblade. So I immediately pull it out, press the button to make the key fold out, and I stare at him for a second. I believe he was caught off guard because he stopped walking for a second. Well, that second was all I needed. I immediately took off running at top speed, crossing the street. We are talking a Los Angeles main street with 6 lanes and a medium divider. And I kept running down the street. I'm no Olympian, but I was on the cross-country team at D2 college and still run multiple times a week. So I'm pretty confident that I can outrun the average person to run into by a comfortable margin. Still, I didn't want to take any chances and ran all the way back to the hospital. So, what do you guys think? I'm not crazy, right? I'm not necessarily saying that I was going to be the next prominent murder victim or a kidnap victim, but there was definitely something going on here, right? In lieu of the death penalty, I was to be sentenced to an experimental drug trial, through which I would be subjected to 1 hour of eternity. I have spent the last 10 billion years staring at the same 4 walls, begging for death, but unable to die, and my sentence has not even begun. The Kidnapper in the Woods at a Park by Killian099. It was a warm summer day over the weekend, and my brother and my sister and I decided to go to the park with our 2 best friends. The park was closer to where we lived, and it was in an isolated area surrounded by woods. Parents would sit on the picnic tables not too far from the playground while they watched their kids play. We meet our friends there and we played on the playground, and then we played tag with some of the other kids. While everyone else was playing on the playground, my friend and I wanted to go explore the woods. We didn't ask our parents first because we thought it would be okay. We started hiking and we discovered a stream. My friend and I love science, rocks, and minerals, so we started to search for cool rocks. We continued exploring until we thought we heard something or someone walking into the woods because the leaves were crunching. We thought it was an animal, so we looked around, but we didn't see anything or anyone, so we continued our exploring. As we made it further into the woods, I got an uncomfortable feeling that someone was watching us, so I asked if we could go back to the playground. My friends said sure because our parents were worried if they didn't see us. We hiked back and continued playing on the playground. We were swinging on the swings and we saw a little boy wander off into the woods to explore. We noticed a car parked on the other side of the woods and a guy came out from behind a tree and closer to the little boy. It looked like the guy was trying to lure this little boy to come with him. The boy started to go with him, and the guy tried to grab him, but just then his parents noticed and called for him to come back. The guy that wanted to kidnap him took off running into the woods and drove away quickly. One of his parents got a picture of the kidnapper though. My friend and I were freaked out because we were in that same spot as the guy. He could have been hiding behind a tree watching us the whole time or took off with one of us running. Thank goodness we both were okay and one of my parents noticed and saved the boy from being kidnapped. After that, my family and friends all went home. We decided to never go back to that park ever again. The police were called and I'm not sure if they ever found that person. A single tear ran down my cheek as my son finally said his first word, with the cutest little smile on his face. I wrapped my hands around his throat as he repeatedly called out "Mama," as I knew it meant he loved his bitch of a mother more than he loved me. My Walk That Me and My Dad Don't Talk About by the History Teacher 1. It was late August 2011. I was 11 at the time, and I was staying at my dad's house for the weekend. My dad is a very outdoorsy man. He likes nature and making us go on long hikes. We also lived the opposite of some woods, so every now and again, my brother, my father, and I would take our 3 dogs there: Riggington, Elfie, and Rip. This was summer holiday time, so I could stay up to whatever time I wanted. And my dad totally took advantage of that, because he liked to go on late night walks with the dogs, most of the time on his own, but sometimes with my brother. Like I said before, I was 11, so I still believed hugely in ghosts and the paranormal, so every time he asked me to go on these walks, I'd stay away, because I was scared of going into the woods late at night. The time I finally plucked up the courage to go, my dad was more than happy. We went out the door and we started talking. We had just entered the woods when we heard a whistle. I asked, "Do you hear that?" But he said not to worry, but his face said otherwise. At this point, I was terrified. I tried to make him go back, but he is a very stubborn man. We were about 3 minutes into the walk when we saw a man sitting on one of those benches near the park. He looked to be in his late 60s, white hair, burgundy suit, a dark wood cane, and a drink of something. When we passed him, we each said our hellos, but he was dead silent. His eyes wide open and pale face scared the living hell out of me. We picked up the pace, but then we heard the whistling again. It was louder this time. He moved closer, sitting on the bench near to us, and I told my dad. Then we turned around to go back. I don't really remember much after that because I pushed away the memories after all these years, but as we were walking, we saw a poster on a pole. I was a curious kid and always very nosy, so I read it. Martin Jones, age 67, height 5'5", gone missing around 10 p.m., Saturday, July 9th. It was the same man. I beckoned my dad over, but he stopped, eyes wide open, shouted, "Get away from my son." I turned around, and there he was, just about to grab me, when my dad came over and pushed him away. We ran, called the authorities, but they said they never heard of the man, and at that point, we never went into those woods again. Searching through the wreckage of another ruined city, I finally got lucky when I found mounds of enough warm white rice to starve off starvation for another day. Shoving a handful into my mouth, I felt the little grains wither and squirm against my tongue, but I told myself it was just my imagination, as I swallowed hard and took another bite. A Stranger Tries to Steal My Dog and Other Nightmares Before Christmas by NadjaColette. This happened before Christmas of 2019, when I, female, was 26, and it sticks with me to this day. I've thought about sharing this many times, but I've never been sure if it's scary enough. I guess you'll decide. My then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to meet for dinner at a Christmas market here in Switzerland. He would pick up our dog from our doggy daycare, and I would get there after work. Some things that are good to know. At that point, we had our dog for about a year. He's called Bean. He's a medium-sized dog, and before he came to Switzerland, he was a street dog in Italy. He was about 2.5 years old at the time, and he loved and still loves to get all the attention he can get. Also, Christmas markets are incredibly busy here, especially after work. People will meet there with friends to eat dinner and drink mulled wine. When we got to the Christmas market, we realized that it was way too busy to walk through with a dog, and I sent my boyfriend off to get my favorite street food, Mellowalk. I waited at the edge of the market with Bean. Bean likes to greet everyone who looks at him, and by that point I gotten used to talking with strangers because my dog wanted to meet them. So I wasn't too concerned at first when a dude came up to me. Full transparency, I don't remember word for word what was said. I'm not even sure what language this happened in. I do remember that Bean happily greeted this guy, trying to stand up against him, licking his hands. The guy asked what his name is and what breed he is. I told him that his name was Bean and he's a pincer mix. That's when the situation started to turn. The man insisted that he must be a Bernese. How could I say he's a pincer? All of a sudden, he switched. There's no better word to explain it. He grabbed Bean's leash and said, "I'll go now," and just tried to walk off with my dog. Thankfully, I had a firm grip on his leash and was incredibly confused and flustered and just stammered that he can't take my dog. He got increasingly more angry every second I didn't let go of the leash. I loudly told him to leave me alone, and Bean started to bark at the man. I never seen Bean this angry and scared at the same time, and thankfully the man let go of the leash and slipped into the crowd. I was left standing there, dumbfounded mess with a mess of a dog. Bean was barking and shaking, so I knelt down to calm him down, holding him and talking to him. My boyfriend was still somewhere in the crowd, waiting for our food. After a while, a woman walked up to me and told me not to put my heel to the floor, as she had just seen someone put a firecracker there. I don't know the name for this type of firecracker. They are small, like 1/4 inch, and usually thrown at the floor to make a little boom sound on impact. Someone put them under the heel of my shoe so it would explode when I put my heel down to get up. Now, I don't know what's worse. Was it the same guy that tried to steal Bean, or was it someone else who saw a distressed dog and thought, "Wow, let's scare that dog a lot more"? I think that the worst thing for me was that apart from the woman who warned me, no one helped me when I was harassed by a weird guy, even though I loudly told him to go away, and there were other people standing very close just watching. Bean was the only one who scared the guy off in the end. Thankfully, the events of that evening had no lasting impact on Bean. He still loves to greet strangers. I still remember it and don't think I will ever forget. After an hour-long conversation, the psychologist told me that she still didn't believe in ghosts and it was time for her to have lunch with her son. First, I didn't want to traumatize her, but seeing no other option, I took her to the next room where her son had killed her earlier. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. First, if you have a story you'd like me to narrate, you can send it in 3 different ways, either through my subreddit, email, or website. All the links are down below for you. Second of all, I'd like to thank all my patrons and members. You guys help support this channel and keep it going. Thank you guys so much. Last but never least, I'd like to thank everyone who let me read their stories this evening. These kinds of situations can be very unnerving and very terrifying at the same time. You never know how much danger you really were in, and people trying to steal either your animals, or you, or who knows what else they were trying to do. I thought this theme would be a little bit interesting since I have done stories like this, but I thought a whole video about it would be an interesting idea. And of course, for everyone who let me read their stories, I hope you all stay safe and never have to deal with anything like this again. And of course, to everyone who's listening, please remember to trust your gut. If the situation feels off, make noise, make sure you bring attention to yourself, do whatever you have to get out of a situation. The worst thing you're going to do is just make a fool of yourself, which, not a big deal. But they could take you to a second location and your chances of getting away are pretty slim. So please remember to always be safe out there, guys. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me what you thought, what kind of stories you like in the future, if you'd like me to do more themes, or keep it broad like I usually do. And if you're on the podcast and are able to, please leave me a review. And on Spotify, there are questions that you can answer or use that section to also leave me comments as well. If you'd like to help this channel/podcast grow, share it with anyone who might enjoy these kinds of stories, helps quite a bit, gets me in front of new ears/eyes. And of course, if you'd like to help in a more financial way, I do have that Patreon and memberships, where for $1 a month you get early access, as well as some bonuses with the other tiers. I do have Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and a super thanks on YouTube if you'd like to do a one-time donation as well. None of this is ever expected, but always appreciated. I really just do this as a hobby, and I truly enjoy narrating these stories for you guys. But as always, guys, thank you for watching and listening. That always has and always will mean the world to me. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.